Madi is currently the Talent Bridge Manager within Brock University's Co-op Career and Experiential Education Department. Did I butcher that word? No. There we go, I got it. Talent Bridge is a new program being brought to life this year that connects final year students to industry-specific training and employment through a 4-month program right after they graduate. Previously, Madi was the project manager of Niagara College's Entrepreneurship and Innovation Program, NC Takeoff. Through the role, she worked with students on their business ventures and promoted entrepreneurship within the classroom and across campus. Madi is a graduate from Brock University, Political Science in 2017, and through her time with BioLink, now Venture Development, and developing a startup through BioLink service and support, she developed her passion for encouraging more youth, women, marginalized communities to have access to resources that will help their entrepreneurial dreams come true. So thank you, Madi, for being here with us today. Next, I'm going to introduce Jorge Nikolaidis, far end over there. George is at Erie Mutual. He is our Manager of Underwriting and Loss Prevention. George himself is a Brock University graduate of 1993. He has 26 years of experience in the insurance industry that ranges from working with small businesses to mid-size and large Fortune 500 brokerages, but the majority of those years have been in working on the insurance company side of things, finding a niche in commercial underwriting as a commercial insurance specialist in various market segments. So thank you for being here with us today, George. Next, I'm going to introduce Myles Tenpine, owner of Tenpine Web Development. Myles, you want to... There we go. Thank you, Myles. Myles started his career heading up the web department of a technology service provider before making the leap to his own business in 2010. His company, Tenpine, offers a full range of digital services, including website and graphic design, online marketing, and hosting. So thank you, Myles, for being with us today. And we have Rob Belcher. I just asked you how to introduce it. Belcher. There we go. Okay, thank you. Small business consultant here in St. Catharines and the St. Catharines Enterprise Center. Rob enjoys working with small businesses and entrepreneurs on a daily basis. During the past 10 years, Rob has met thousands of aspiring startups through his work in the Hamilton Business Center and now at the St. Catharines Enterprise Center. In addition to consulting with businesses and startups, Rob has started a few businesses of his own and worked in a family business early on in his career. Last but not least, Rob is also proud to share that he is a graduate from Brock University. So thank you for being with us, Rob. Shane. I actually have the privilege myself of going to school with Shane. Shane VanEgmond has a passion, he's the owner, of Sticker It Signs and Graphics, and Shane has a passion for the sign and print industry, starting in the trade at the age of 15 and being involved for over 16 years has led to his vast product knowledge and development. In 2010, Shane transitioned from the portable sign rental sector into large format and digital printing. With his dedication to customer service and product solutions, it has brought growth to the list of products and services that Sticker It offers. The Sticker It team continues to grow with professional and knowledgeable staff in the graphic design and production and installation departments. So thank you for being with us today, Shane. Madi.
Great. Thank you for coming, everyone, and choosing to stay here instead of the workshop. So it should be fun. And thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. So I think the kind of format of this is that we'll start with each of you kind of explaining who you are, what company you're representing today, and a bit of the services and products that your company provides. And then we'll do questions kind of directed at each of you. And if afterwards, if any of you guys want to pipe in at all or add your perspective on something, please feel free. And then in 45 minutes, I think we will turn it to questions to the audience. So Shane, if you would like to start off a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Adam said, I am the owner of Sticker It Signs and Graphics. Been in the industry now for 16 years, and a little bit about my background. Had a bit of a different start to business. Grew up in a family with multiple businesses, stemming back to my grandfather in the construction and greenhouse industry, to my father, also in the greenhouse industry, and then into the sign industry. Bit of history on that. I guess growing up in business, it's kind of, you know, something that everyone looks to you and says, you know, you're a businessman right off the hop. You just get put into that. So, you know, enjoying business and what the family brought to me, nonetheless, that's what I got into. So, of course, we're speaking at a university now. I have no post-secondary education. I've actually got my grade 11, but very, very determined in the business world. So brought me to where I am today. We have a 4,000 square foot production facility where we do graphic design, print production, both in paper printing as well as sign and vehicle graphics. So we've got currently 5 employees plus myself, and run a well-rounded shop doing all kinds of different print products. So a little bit there about myself and kind of how I got into the industry, and a little back history on myself.
Nice. Perfect. So I'm Rob Belcher from the St. Catharines Enterprise Center. A little bit about our organization. I almost said business, but we're an organization. We're part of the City of St. Catharines, and we're part of a network of 47 offices across Ontario of small business enterprise centers. Closest one is Niagara Falls, next is Hamilton, but everywhere from Ottawa to North Bay and further. All across Ontario, there's 47 offices like ours. We're funded by the province of Ontario, and each municipality that runs one also offers some funding as well. And we're there to offer advice and guidance to small business owners. And to give you a sense, every month we average 55 to 60 people walk in our door and say, hey team, can you tell me how to run a business? And or sometimes it's a small business owner that walks in and says, hey, I've been in business for 5 years. I'm kind of stuck at this point. Can I talk to somebody about my business plan or my marketing plan or my, you know, any of those things? So we're good generalists. We offer a lot of guidance, resources, information through seminars, workshops, consultations. And out of those, 60 people, 50 people each month, 600-700 a year, we see 100 to 150 businesses that get started across Niagara that have touched our office in some way. So it's a lot of fun. It's all across all different industries. And our office has been in existence for 27 years now, which was a fun fact I recently discovered, right? Yeah, it's pretty cool. So that's us in a nutshell. If you know somebody starting a business and they could use a tiny bit of advice and help, that's what we're here for. Thank you.
My name is Myles Calvert. I've run Tenpine web development for 10 years now. We just celebrated 10 years. Career started, like Madi said, we were running a technology company. I was just a branch, the web branch of it. My dream of starting my own business was accelerated when that business shut down for various reasons. So I jumped right into Tenpine web development. We offer primarily anything to do with online marketing, online promotions, digital marketing, whatever you want to call it. We do website development as primary, but we also have ventured into social media marketing, dabbled a bit in video marketing. So anything to do with an online presence of a small business, small, medium-sized business, we are the go-to.
Hi, I'm Jorge Nikolaidis, and Adam gave you the background of Erie Mutual. My background, currently I'm the loss prevention underwriting manager for Erie. Insurance wasn't my first choice coming out of school. I graduated heading into the 1993 recession and kind of stumbled into the industry on the broker side, and after various speed bumps along the way, I've grown into a career that I can appreciate. As a company, we've been around a long time. We offer your basic personal lines coverages for your home and auto. We've started to expand in the small business area for commercial businesses, and we've offered farm products for a long time for farm owners. That's in a nutshell pretty much.
Great, thank you. And it's great to see that we have a very wide range of professionals on the stage. So Shane, first question to you. You mentioned that you often work with a lot of different products. A lot of different products are coming through kind of your space. So how frequently do you find your business changes in regards to products offered? And how do you manage that change with maybe your staff members or space?
Yeah, so our industry, I mean, the sign and graphic industry is always changing, from you know, the visuals of it to the product solutions of it. So in an industry that's forever changing, some of the things that we really prize our shop on is equipment. One of the biggest things, you know, in the equipment sector is everything is becoming better quality and faster production. In a world that we live in where, you know, today isn't good enough, yesterday would have been better, we've got to adapt to that. And a lot of that comes with our printers and our production equipment. So just on that note, we just put a new Xerox press in. You know, when 60 sheets a minute isn't fast enough, you got to bump it up to 80 sheets a minute. So just things like that where you've got to adapt with the speed of the print industry. And then product solutions. The products are always changing. I mean, LEDs was a big one in the signage industry. You know, just coming from initially the signage industry of it, everything used to be the T12 light bulbs with ballast. Sign cabinets, very simple illuminated signage. And LEDs has changed that market from screens that you see that are now controlled remotely, all the way up to, you know, how creative you can get with manufacturing signage on building pylon signs, that sort of thing. So we're always in touch with our suppliers. They're typically the first ones that are sourcing the products from all over the world, and we are constantly in talks with them, you know, seeing what's new on the market for as far as product solutions, and just also trying to think outside the box and coming up with unique designs that work for the message that our customers are trying to get across. So yeah, kind of the equipment end and then also the product end for an industry that is changing rapidly.
And Rob, maybe you can kind of speak to this a little bit too, because I see the Enterprise Center is always bringing out new kind of programming for entrepreneurs. Is that kind of feedback that you've gotten from clients, or?
Absolutely. There's certain foundational seminars that we offer, like business planning and market research and marketing, things like that, that people just need to know about. But things are changing, and one thing we've noticed is, most people use some sort of social media, but does a business owner know how to use it effectively? So that's one area where more and more we're offering seminars and services and guidance is, you know, which social media should you be on? How do you use it effectively? How do you create content effectively? Things along those lines, absolutely.
Well, thank you for setting up the next question then. So on the topic of social media and kind of change, Myles, what do you kind of say to the small businesses out there? How do you compete online? Because there's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. What do you kind of tell people of how they can stick out in such a busy market?
Yeah, I think the number one thing in terms of for any business that you're running, obviously online marketing is becoming massive. I don't know if you've seen the movie The Social Network, but there's a line in there that roughly says we went from living on farms to living in cities, and now we're living online. And that's so true in terms of vast majority of people. They're doing their searches online. That's where they're spending their time. So that's where you got to get your name out there, no matter what business you're doing, car repair, interior decorating, whatever. You got to know how to leverage those tools. And the best advice I can give in terms of using those tools, something Shane touched on, is be willing to adapt if you can spend a year mastering everything, how it's all set up now, but if you're not willing to know or realize that you got to keep learning, you'll fall behind quickly. Algorithms are constantly changing. There's new social channels coming out all the time, how to leverage them. So you want to kind of get a channel of sorts of knowledge, follow the right accounts online, try to be on top of those changes as they come, and make sure you're leveraging the content the right way, how you're targeting people online the right way. So yeah, basically the best advice, I guess, would be to learn it as best as you can with the time that you have, and always continue learning with the new changes that come out.
Awesome, thanks. And George, now I kind of want to touch on the insurance bit, because I'm going to be honest, I feel like a lot of small businesses do not think of insurance when they're starting out, especially maybe more so tech companies and companies that may not have, a physical storefront, for example. So what's the importance of small businesses to kind of invest in insurance, and what are some of your kind of tips for small businesses just starting out in terms of getting insurance?
So it should be part of the business plan for anybody that's setting up any kind of business, whether you have a storefront or not. Ultimately, you're making an investment in yourself, in your future, trying to grow business. And by overlooking it, sorry, a little bit of technical difficulty. By overlooking these things, you can leave yourself susceptible to catastrophic ruin. You want to purchase the insurance, find the right people to provide you with what you need so that you can protect your assets. And you're exposed on different fronts, whether it's your physical property assets or susceptible to third-party liability. Even if there's no storefront, you're on the internet, you're selling products on there, providing services, you could be sued. Your insurance will protect you, with respect to those exposures. So.
And now kind of back to the beginning of the startup journey.
Mm-hmm.
Rob, when do you think is the right time, in quotations, for a startup business to reach out for assistance or even get started? And again, feel free to jump in on this afterwards to everyone else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think my two neighbors here might have thoughts as to that based on their startup journey. I'll start this with a question. Has anybody here seen Dragon's Den, right? And there's always that really terrible pitch, right? And you wonder, like, didn't somebody tell them not to do this? Like, that they're gonna embarrass themselves? Well, that's why the sooner you start talking to people, the better. Like, it's never too early to start sharing your idea and getting feedback on it. The good companies, the successful companies master this, and they're client, customer focused. So you focus on your customers, you continually learn from them, and you adapt and give them what they want, what they need, even what they don't know they want just yet, but you figure it out by talking to them and offering it to them. So the sooner you share your idea, the stronger your business will be, and the more feedback you'll get, which really helps. So people are always a little bit terrified about sharing their idea too early, and will people steal my idea and things like that. But it takes a lot of work to develop a business, and it's really hard to steal an idea if you're the first one to have it and you're the one getting out there. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is to jump into it, start talking to people as early as possible, and get their feedback.
Yeah, maybe to Shane and Myles, when did you guys decide, when was that moment that you decided to become an entrepreneur, to own your own business?
It's something I've always wanted to do growing up. My father was an entrepreneur, and it's always something that I figured I'd get into eventually. So the decision was probably made in high school. When it actually became into effect, is like I said, it was kind of not my choice. When it first happened, I kind of made the leap sooner than expected. But yeah, it's just something you kind of know. It's probably around like high school, you probably know, and then it's just part of you. If you don't like working for someone, if you don't, you just know that you're an entrepreneur, I suppose.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Myles on that. I mean, growing up in a family that was also very successful in business, you kind of know young. You definitely got to surround yourself right away. For myself, through some turn of family events, I was job hunting for a couple years, and was never really happy, and always knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And the first person I actually talked to was an uncle of mine that was a very successful businessman, and I pitched him my idea. I said, I'd like to start. I know it's a dog-eat-dog world, and can you give me some advice? So, really you gotta surround yourself with people right from the start. Ideas are ideas. Doesn't mean they have to come to fruition, but a lot of people have done things, different businesses in that you can talk to, and they could guide you a lot far better than learning the hard way. So.
And back to you again, Shane. I guess a big part of starting a business is obviously risk. So how have you dealt with taking risks, or even, kind of dealing with the outcome of some risk taking. So how did you kind of deal with that, especially as someone that has a lot of product as well? So, risk taking in terms of hiring new staff or bringing on new people or bringing on new clients. How do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, so there's always risk in business. I mean, as the saying goes, no risk, no reward. If you think you're gonna get into business and have zero risk, probably not a wise idea to go into business, because there's always risk, but there's good risk and there's bad risk. And you've always got to evaluate every step of the way, You got to look at your business growth. You got to look at your sales. You got to look at your product line. And you've got to assess everything and make your decisions based on that. We had risk. I was a young guy when I started, and believe it or not, started out of my mom's garage. And from there, you've got many things going on in life, from growing your business to, for myself, starting a family. And so, you bring some outside risk into it as well. I got 2 beautiful young kids, and there's always that risk of family life. Being an entrepreneur, your heart is really in your business. And if it's not, think about that again. And so yeah, there's always risk. We've encountered a few risks. One was the big growth we did in 2017 when we purchased a 6,400 square foot commercial building for our print business. And that was a risk. That was a time where I had 2 employees plus myself. We were operating out of kind of again a home-based business off of my property, and you look at that and you say, okay, do I lease? Do I purchase something? What's going to be the long-term goal of the business? Where do you see yourself in 10 years? Even sooner, where do you see yourself in 2 years? So that was a huge risk for us. You got to punch numbers. Business is a numbers game as well. And we made the decision to buy, and that was very, very risky. We had a great going little business, and that just takes you to that next level, more overhead, bigger commitments every month. And from there, you start adapting. And the fortunate thing for us is we gained some space to operate our business and to offer more products. So it opened up doors for ourselves as a company. And from there, you've got risk in equipment purchases. We are in an industry that's changing very fast. Like I said, a yesterday industry. When somebody calls you up and they need posters, or they need business cards, or they need flyers, postcards, they need some signage for an event, you got to be able to adapt to that and the timeline. So equipment is another big risk factor in our industry. Where do you go with it? Where's the industry going? Trying to be on that leading edge. So absolutely, definitely risk on that. Projects can have risk as well. We get into a lot of project-based work this time of year. You see signage everywhere, and a lot of it somebody just doesn't call you up and say, hey, I need a sign and I need it tomorrow. When you start to get into some of the building signage, pylon signage, directional signage, there's a lot more to that. So you've got to be able to meet client expectations, meet timelines, and work with clients on that. So.
And George, obviously with insurance, sometimes we think also risk management as well. So what is your input on the risk of a business when it comes to insurance for a new business? And how does an insurance company work with a new business on finding insurance that works best for them?
Well, it's a broad range of things. The one piece of advice that I can recommend right from the beginning is do not leave it until the last minute. Especially if you're a new startup, you should be, as I mentioned earlier, it should be part of your business plan, and you should be in contact with a professional, finding out what you need, getting their advice, going over all the little details and intricacies. And it'll vary depending on what sort of business you're in. If it's a cookie cutter business, it may be a lot more straightforward. There could be packages out there. If it's a business like Shane's, There's a lot of different variables that go into it. And when we say a lot of different variables, he's got to meet customer demands. If something happens and his operation goes down, can he relocate to fulfill those orders? Is that part of, you know, the package he's got? Has he purchased the correct insurance? There's a lot of different aspects that can go into it. But the biggest straightforward recommendation is do not leave it until the last minute, because again, you're putting yourself, you're making yourself susceptible. You may not be in contact with the right professional. There's a lot of people out there who dabble in certain areas of commercial, and they may be well-versed in one segment, but not well-versed in another segment, which is, you know, where your business may fall under. So.
And I feel like we're hitting on the theme of adaptability a lot in this panel already. So Myles, in terms of that, how can a startup business get their website noticed, or maybe make kind of a pivot that will make kind of their views of their website and kind of their click-through rate even go up more? Is there any kind of standout strategies in terms of content or design that you would recommend to a new business?
Yeah, definitely for the website, the number one thing you want to make sure of today is that the website is mobile friendly, responsive. If you don't recognize the responsive term, it basically just means when you go to a website on a desktop, it looks a certain way, and when you transition to an iPhone or a mobile device, it looks a different way. Practicality speaking, I think the stats up over 60% now is people that browse online using their phones over desktop now. So what we do is every website that we create is mobile first, like the design is with mobile in mind first, and then it adapts to desktop. Technically speaking, having a responsive website is something that Google looks very kindly on. If your website is not responsive or not at least mobile friendly, because technically you don't have to be responsive, but if your website is not mobile friendly, Google really penalizes you. And why that's important, obviously, is because I think, again, going to the stats, is 83% of consumers, when they're searching for a product or service, they're going to punch it in on Google. They're not looking up the yellow pages. They're not even asking friends so much anymore. They're starting their search on Google. So probably the number one thing I'd say is appease the Google gods as much as you can. That in terms of local listings, if you're a local business offering your services locally, you want to make sure you have a strong local listing. The other one is organic listings, where SEO comes into play. That's where the responsiveness aspect comes into play a lot. And the third search results in Google is actually the paid listings. That's completely optional, but if there's certain specific products, services, and keywords that you really want to go after, you can utilize the Google Pay ads as well. But nowadays, specifically, if you're wondering what the number one thing you should do right now for your business in terms of getting noticed online, is have a very strong Google local listing. Get as many reviews as you can, many positive reviews, obviously. If people come to a Google listing, if they don't find you there with a strong rating, like if you have less than 4-star rating, if they see the 3-point whatever, that hurts you a lot. People skip to the next one. So specifically get that 4-star or above with as many ratings as you can. If you have 10+, you're good, but obviously more the better, as long as you have that 4+ star. That's probably the number one thing people look at now. They search for product or services, they see those local listings, and then they choose the 1 or 2 that have the best ratings and the most reviews. People trust that above anything. So that'd be the number one place to start in terms of your online presence. And that could be for literally any business, any service provider of any kind. So.
Great, thanks. And I feel like building that online presence can be a bigger struggle for a new business. But Rob, when you're meeting with a whole bunch of different entrepreneurs in all different kind of stages, what do you think is, or what are you hearing is the biggest struggle for them? And why do you think that's a struggle?
My gosh, so we all start a business because of passion, hopefully. In most cases, that's the reason people start, or they're tired of making money for somebody else and they want to try it on their own. But then how do you know so much about insurance, about web development, about accounting, about marketing, about staffing and hiring? How do you be good in all of those things, right? So you start your business and then things get real, things get busy, and it becomes very overwhelming. It becomes an emotional roller coaster. I hear that word a lot in my office from people who are 6 months in or 12 months in. They're like, I knew it would be hard, but I didn't know it would be emotional like this, right? And that's what I see a lot. Like we said before, you have to surround yourself with good people. Like that's something you said early on, Shane, right? Is you have to surround yourself with good people as early as possible. So I think overwhelm is really the biggest thing. The second thing, though, is people often don't realize how hard it is to get traction, to get those first 4, 5, 10 clients through the door, and to get that first, 100,000 in whatever the number is in sales, that first bit of sales. And sometimes I have people say to me, "Oh, Rob, I don't want to market too much because I don't want to be too busy." And I'm like, "Oh, please, market yourself, because that's not going to happen in most cases, right?" But I hear that from entrepreneurs a lot, that because I love my idea, everybody else is going to, and I just have to put my name out there, and all of a sudden people are going to be knocking down my door, right? So that's a second part of it is that sales piece is so critically important.
And what do you think, kind of to avoid that maybe, or maybe kind of mitigate that a little bit, what do you think that first step should be when someone's thinking or wanting to start a business?
Right. Well, again, it's surrounding yourself with good people, it's sharing it with people, it's developing some sort of plan. And getting out there quickly and aggressively. That's really important.
And I think also talking to your potential customers as well.
Yeah, you can't say that enough, and that is number one, is you need to find your customers and you need to appeal to them. Yeah.
So I think the next question, I'm going to combine a couple, just for the sake of time, and then also to the two entrepreneurs, kind of, what are some of the mistakes that you wish you could have avoided in your business, either early on or maybe even when you hit that growth stage? And maybe from that, what is one tip that you would give to young entrepreneurs kind of from that mistake that you might have made?
Okay, yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean, we all as entrepreneurs make mistakes. I mean, I make mistakes daily, whether it be, saying the wrong thing to a customer, which you try not to do, to, having a tough day and instead of focusing on shop morale, you kind of bury yourself in the office. I mean, those are some simple things. One of the big things that I've found, I don't know if it's a mistake or as much as a struggle, but I think it needs to be talked about in all entrepreneurs, is the financing end of it. It's always been a struggle for us being a young entrepreneur and growing fast. I mean, We've been growing consistently 35 to 36% every year, and which is a great growth rate. But the financing end of it, and where I go with that is, and I pinpoint that on, is when we purchased our building, we sat there and we found the financing to purchase the building. One thing we didn't do, which to me is a big mistake, is to really put some extra financing in place for any renovations and leasehold improvements on the facility. So what that did is, for me, being the mistake in that, is it took from my cash flow. And it really took a good year and a half to replenish that cash flow, which makes running a business tough. So if I had to say one of my biggest mistakes was, when you're making these big jumps, is talk to a financial planner, talk to a financial advisor, talk to your bank, get that financing there to help you and assist you to grow. So I'd say that was a big mistake for myself.
I've actually never made a mistake. No, the biggest mistake I definitely made, and I refer to this a lot when I'm talking to people, is not knowing what you do well and not knowing who you're servicing. Years ago, there seemed to be an organic overlap between digital graphic design, web design, and print media. A lot of my clients would ask me, okay, great website. Now we're looking for business cards and brochures and flyers, so I just organically thought, well, that's something I should go. That's what they're asking for. That's what I'm going to start providing. Within less than a year, we realized that it's a completely different industry. It's not what we know and what we do, and we found that we were becoming very watered down, and we weren't doing that side of it very well, to be honest, like the print media side of things. So we learned, just basically shut that down. We learned what we know is web and digital, and to focus on that. So the biggest mistake is definitely trying to get into print media, and what I learned from that is just know yourself. So whatever business you are, try not to spread it out too much. Try to limit yourself to a certain key set of services, or one service, depending on what the business is, and really focus on that and grow that as best as you can, rather than spreading yourself out too wide.
Great, thanks. And we talk a lot about, building a strong circle around you. May it be, friends, family, coworkers, or even like services available to you. So George, when someone's looking to select an insurance company to protect their business, price, as we've talked about, is always a factor for small businesses. But what other factors should entrepreneurs consider when selecting an insurance company?
I'd recommend they look for an insurer who provides, or whether it's the agent staff that they have, or whether it's a broker, someone who provides risk management. It's key to the success of your business. Just from start, like your housekeeping, depending on the variation of your business. If you're a restaurant, having those things posted on with respect to, are your staff smart served? If it's a liquor licensed premises, if you're a snow removal company, again, having your risk management procedures, your logging, etc. It'll vary from business to business, but if you can tap into an insurer who provides risk management services to get you started, it's vital for your business and for your success. It'll keep you on the right path.
So Erie Mutual, right?
Erie Mutual, exactly. Yeah.
Awesome. How much are we good for time? How much time do we have? Okay, awesome. So Rob, can you explain a bit more, because we kind of touched lightly on the services and also the workshops and all that good stuff that an enterprise center provides, but is there any limitations on who your services are available to, and who is the ideal client to reach out? Because I know there's obviously, Innovate Niagara, for example, and
Sure.
a couple other service providers. So who would be a good client that would be able to come to you?
Okay. Anybody and everybody can come to us. We do focus more, our services are geared more towards the, say, traditional Main Street type of businesses. And you mentioned Innovate Niagara, we work very closely with them. So sometimes there's a business that's commercializing a brand new idea. They've got a real spin that's going to innovate the marketplace. And then in that case, we'll make an introduction to our friends at, say, Innovate Niagara. But still, there's no wrong door. We're a government service. We're here as your friendly first point of contact. We'll give you some guidance and advice, and then talk to you about other resources like the one I just mentioned, or maybe our friends here at Brock, or things like that. So anybody and everybody, if they have an idea, if you're running a small business, no harm in having a conversation with myself or one of my colleagues in the office.
It's totally free, right?
Totally free.
And so, Myles, quickly, so when you find your business growing at such a steady pace, beyond your own capability, when did you decide, again, I don't know how many employees you have currently or if you started to outsource, but when do you think a small business should decide to go that way, and what has your experience been with that?
Yeah, we run a small unit. We just have a team of 4. When we choose to expand, we definitely try to bring someone into the team. We try not, like obviously there's some cases where you can't avoid to outsource for specific tasks, but we try to limit it and try to bring people into the team because we generally want people to be invested. There's a saying that we always say, if you can go fast alone, but you can go far together. So if you have a team of people around you that are invested, that specialize in different services, definitely try to grow the team organically. When that happens, it's hard to say specifically, really. It's really dependent on your lifestyle, your current business. For me, it was when I noticed that I was basically losing that fire after a few months. Like if you work 12-hour days, 6 days a week for a certain amount of months, you'll kind of hit that wall and you realize, okay, well, this can't be sustainable. What is the solution? And the solution usually is to delegate those tasks to hopefully someone on your team currently, or someone that you can bring into the team to expand it, so you can take the burden off yourself, so you can specialize in those things that you do well, and hire someone out that is also equally specialist, but in those areas that you might not do well, or that are just taking up too much time.
Shane, do you have anything to add to that? I feel like your operations are labor intensive as well.
Yeah, I mean, we run a team of 6, and it is very labor intensive. One of the hardest parts is finding team members, and I think Myles spoke of that very well. Go forward as a team, and that's the way we operate our business as well. It's, I am the entrepreneur, I am the business owner, but at the end of the day, when you deal with Sticker It, you're not dealing with just me. You're dealing with a team. You're dealing with our graphic designers firsthand. You're dealing with production and installation firsthand. So Surrounding yourself with a team and growing as a team together is huge.
And obviously, we speak a lot about cash flow and actually making revenue, which obviously is a top priority for businesses to pay the bills and to continue to scale. But what is priority number 2? Maybe that's, building a team, but maybe that's, maybe even making an impact in your community. How do you find setting that priority number 2?
Yeah, I think for us, every business, cash flow is huge. I mean, you don't go in business to lose money. If you want to do that, there's far better things to have fun doing than losing money. But I think for us, the big thing is, customer relations. That's huge for us. We've built our business right from day one on customer relations. And I think Darcy and Mary of the Erie Mutual team can vouch for that. We've done a lot of different projects with Erie Mutual themselves as well. And customer relations is key. Repeat customers, it costs money to find a customer. It doesn't cost you a whole lot to retain a customer. Quality products, a great service, interact with them, product solutions, product knowledge of your industry is key. And I think that's, we all want to make money, but I think at the end of the day, customer relations should probably be on the top of most business lists.
Does anyone else want to add to that?
I think like Shane said, obviously priority 1 is to have a sustainable business revenue stream to support yourself and your family. But I think the second driving point behind me, I've always been community oriented. So whenever there's a chance to get involved in a local charity or organization that happens to be looking for hosting or a website, it doesn't happen a lot because it's obviously a niche service, but it's something I take pride in. We do work for the 40 Erie SBCA. We're working on a site right now for Dreams to Memories, which is the Family Wish Granting Foundation. They basically take families that are suffering from a terminal cancer, like one of the parents has a terminal cancer, or terminal illness in general, usually cancer. They take them on a last family trip kind of thing, like they take them to Disney World or a camping trip or whatever. So we're doing something for them. So I think that's priority number 2, is just like kind of leveraging our clout, or whatever you want to call it, our name, to do good for organizations like that is probably the other driving force behind what we do.
Yeah, and that's great. I feel like companies are good at that in Niagara as well, because it is such a close-knit community, so that's great to hear. Did you have something to add, Rob?
Well, I just wanted to say kudos to you for that, and I think that's why, I'll speak on why it's so important to shop local, right? You don't see, like for all of us just as consumers, why it's so important to support the local business, to see you donating your time and your talent to charity like that. That's fantastic. Kudos to you and to Erie Mutual for putting on events like this. Like, that's pretty cool. Like, that's all I wanted to say. I just got excited just to say, like, that's why we support small business, because they give back to the community more than some others might.
Awesome. So just to wrap up, I just want to give everyone kind of a last minute to say their closing remarks. But for the entrepreneurs, what's kind of your next steps for your ventures, next steps for your businesses, and then for our service providers, what is one last piece of advice that you could give all budding entrepreneurs out there?
Yeah, so I think with that, one thing for all entrepreneurs out there, if you're going to start a business, don't be afraid to work hard. At the end of the day, work smart, but work hard. Put your heart and soul into it, and you'll definitely go places. And on that note, for us in expansion and where we're going next, actually, we've been working diligently on an online e-commerce for print, as well as design. So anything from your paper products all the way up to your banners and simple signage. And being that hand out to say, you don't have to have your own design. You don't have to pick a generic design. You can come on board with us. We will provide you the product, but we'll also provide you the custom design service as well. So that's kind of where we're headed in the near future.
So one piece of advice. Wow, there's a lot. I don't want to get on my soapbox here. There's a lot of advice I want to get. But yeah, being prepared to work hard, surround yourself with good people, know who your customer is, and know who your competitor is. And then everything else.
The number one piece of advice I tell people that whenever they're asking me about if they're looking to start a business, I said, do you love it? And if you love it, then everything kind of takes care of it for itself, because the hard work doesn't seem so hard when you love it. Don't do something because your family thinks you should get into it, or because you're good at it. Obviously that helps. But if you don't have the love and passion behind it, all those long days are gonna feel terrible. Don't go into something that you think is gonna be lucrative. Don't go into something that you think you're gonna be good at, and then learn to love it. Start with the love, and then grow it from there. Find something that you would do for free if you didn't have to make money out of it, and find a way to make money out of it, essentially.
And from an insurance perspective, as I mentioned earlier, don't leave it to the last minute. Something that Shane's touched on, find an insurance company you can have a relationship with. You don't want to just be a number out there where they're just mailing you your policy. You want someone who's going to look after your interests, and look for an insurer who's experienced with respect to commercial insurance. If you, and I know this is a far-fetched example, but again, if you've got a heart condition, you need surgery, you ask the questions, you want to know how experienced the surgeon is. You don't want the guy who's straight out of medical school, who's never been in the operating room. Same sort of thing, you know, your business is your life, it's your livelihood. Find an insurer who's, you know, looking after your best interest, wants that relationship with you, and experience, and can provide you the product that you need.
Great. Well, thank you. So what did it?
I was just going to touch on, obviously insurance isn't my thing, but I just wanted to make another movie reference, The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock. I'm not sure if she's the one that says it, but she makes the equation that on a football team, the quarterback is always the #1 paid person on the field because he's the #1 asset. But the second person, or second highest paid player, is always the left tackle because he's the insurance provider of that #1 asset. So your first check is to your home, your second check is to insurance because you have to protect that home and asset. So it should be one of the first things you think of.
I don't have a good movie reference to end this with, so thank you. Yeah, let's put a round of applause for our panelists. That was awesome. And I think we're going to open it up to the audience now for questions. Anyone has questions?
I certainly enjoyed all the presentations, and I learned a lot. I did wonder, Rob, since you're in a position to provide so much advice to ongoing new businesses, what's your credentials? Where did you get your training?
Sure, absolutely. A lot of it's from experience. I studied business here at Brock University. Like Shane, I'm a third generation in family business too. So my grandfather was an accountant, ran an accounting, self-employed accounting practice. Then I grew up in a family construction business, worked in it for a couple of years, but didn't love my mom, love my dad, love my brother, didn't love working with the family as much. So went out on my own. I was recruited into the insurance industry actually. Worked in that industry for 10 years, ran my own small brokerage in the last 3, and was volunteering in the office I manage now. And I was a mentor, giving back some time. And one day I was just like, man, I can't believe people get paid to talk to business owners all day long. This is so fun and so cool. So I said to the manager of the office at the time, I said, how do I get a job like yours? And he said, well, you apply. And then that planted a seed. I sold my business. I worked for the brokerage that bought my business out. I committed to work for them for a year. At the end of that year, the Hamilton Enterprise Center was hiring. So I went to work in the Hamilton Enterprise Center. So I've owned and operated now 4 different businesses. I'm a good generalist, but I'm not Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or anything. But that's the background of a typical consultant in our network. Has business degree, hopefully has worked in or run a business of their own, a small business of their own, and is willing to learn and communicate effectively to people. So thanks for the question.
Yeah, in terms of the kind of contacts you're getting, it makes sense that you're getting most of them online through submission forms or emails because it's just easier for people to do it that way. You always want to make sure you're catering to both. If you can, try to have a phone number, a way to contact you in person. Obviously, there's still people that appreciate that side of things too. In terms of getting the types of contacts that you're looking for, what we do as a smaller company is we try to be very targeted in our social media marketing or anything that we're doing. We want to make sure audience building is a very big thing. You don't want to have, if you're offering one service, you don't want to necessarily offer it to 100,000 people. You're looking for certain people in certain segments. So you really want to get targeted with who you're searching for and who you're putting that in front of. That can be done a lot of different ways. Different social media channels have different demographics. You can advertise on specific websites that link back to it, but yeah, the best advice I would say is get as targeted as you can. There's a lot of different targeting options with the social media channels nowadays. You can obviously target by age, gender, location, and things like that, but you can actually target by interests now and behaviors and remarketing. So people that visited your website or certain websites, they can find you through these things. There's a whole lot of tools, and that comes back to what I was always saying about constantly learning, because that's a world that's constantly changing. You can have the set of targeting metrics established one week, next month it's radically different. So you always got to keep on top of that and leverage those opportunities. So if you see new opportunities that come, oh, hey, that's an audience that I can target this to, I'm going to put that in front of them. Yeah, so you really want to get targeted with who you're getting to make sure you're getting the right contacts. You don't want to feed through a lot of when they're 80% nonsense, right? As easy as you can make it for them, the better, obviously. But how specifically you can do that, it depends on what channels you're using and what metrics. Okay, that's a tough one. People nowadays, they're reluctant to give up those email addresses. So if you're looking to gather email addresses, the best thing I would suggest is to offer that in exchange for some genuine value. People aren't just going to give it to receive your emails because people are tired of that, but they will give it in exchange for something genuinely valuable. So like an article that only they can see, a online tool that you have that only they can see once they're signed up kind of thing. So if they're giving their email in exchange for something that they feel could actually be beneficial to them, they're much more likely to give it. And with the new Castle regulations, obviously they can always sign out if they wanted to. And so you got to make that obviously once they give you their email, but they're not locked in. They don't always have to hear from you. They can filter their notifications based on how often they hear from you, or just unsubscribe altogether. So make that aware that it's not a long-term thing. But number one would be exchange it for something tangible, something of genuine value, because a lot of people try to exchange it for something that's not very valuable and they don't get very far. You really got to put the time in to figure out what that trade will be. What can you offer them in exchange for it?
Great, so I think that's all the time we have for questions, but I'm sure our panelists would be glad to answer any questions during the lunchtime now. But thank you again for sticking around for the panel and not the workshop. And I hope it proved helpful for you and your small business or whatever reason you're here today. And thank you so much again to our panelists. And enjoy lunch.